Hello everyone, this is Darren here with Creativity Unleashed, and today I'm going to be doing a review for the TOOLIOM 250 multi-process welding machine here. I'm a certified structural and pipe welder. I've gone through the Hobart Institute of Welding Technology, but I actually started welding when I was about 11 and just love everything metal and welding goes. A lot of people want to get into welding and they don't want to spend a lot because they're not sure how much they'll do it or if they'll like it or if they'll be good at it. So it's always interesting to look at the cheaper machines and see if they're just complete rubbish or if they're actually decent and do the job well. And I have been pleasantly very surprised with this machine. So here at the back we have a single gas port in. There's the power switch. It tells you all the duty cycles both on 120 volt or 240 volt, and it's surprisingly very good duty cycles. And this thing hasn't seemed to warm up really at all. Over here along the front you of course got your MIG gun coming out, your ground clamp or your negative, and then your usually positive side here I believe it is. And then we have where you select the wire size. So you've got your 035 AL, which I think is the aluminum, 035 like I guess normal, and then 030, and then you have your 024 wire there. And then of course here you have the manual MIG where you can dial in things a little bit more, and you have like the cinematic, so like semi-automatic MIG where it kind of corrects a little bit. And then you have your stick welding function and your TIG welding function. And then over here you have the type of shielding gas you're using, so I'm running straight CO2. I believe this one is for if you're running mixed gas. Not exactly sure. And then this one is the flux core, and then this one is for if you're welding aluminum. And I already showed you those. And then 2T, 4T control, and then I think that's the over temperature. Of course you have your voltage, and then your wire feed speed, and also I think this one controls amperage when you're stick welding. Oh, and of course it has a connection for a connector if you're using a spool gun. Alright, and here in the housing I've got an 11-pound spool of 030 solid wire. And then here you can see the drive roller setup. It's all like cast aluminum, nice metal everything, nice adjustment knob. This here is surprisingly pretty easy. You just unscrew this and then the drive wheels come right off. It's very easy to set up. Have no complaints there. Had like no issues with slippage or any trouble. It runs just like a high-end machine would when it comes to that. We're using pretty standard Chinese style like copy of American DINS connectors. These were like the 3570 or a 3550 style kind of connector. They're kind of interchangeable between those. Ground clamp, definitely decent, nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. The electrode holder, I mean there's obviously a lot better out in the market. Has a good strong spring which helps hold the rods pretty well, and it's decently heavy, pretty comfortable. I mean I might switch it out if I was going to do it all the time, but it's definitely decent, nothing wrong with it. The MIG gun itself is very ergonomically comfortable, seems to be put together decently durable. Obviously it's just the standard consumables and all. So let's get on into welding with it. So here I'm using the LS 1800 miter bandsaw to cut up some square tubing. Alright, so I have the leg set up for a picnic table. I always find it helpful to do an actual useful project when testing a MIG welder. So I have it, this is about 16 gauge, 14 to 16 gauge in between there, mild steel. And it turns out on the semi, like automatic mode, you can set how many millimeters. When you start turning the knob, you set how many millimeters the material thickness is. And so then with that, then you just fine tune the wire speed and it kind of does a lot for you. So that's really easy to use. So let's get this thing tacked up and start running some beads and see how it does. So of course this is without wire brushing, and there's a little more fine tuning that always can be done here, but overall extremely good and satisfied with it. Always of course snip your wire first if you want your starts and stops to come out a little better, but overall extremely impressed as you start getting a little bit more of a hang for it. I haven't actually ran the machine almost at all, so I'm just figuring out how the settings work. So right now I'm going to be running an 1/8 inch 7018 at 150 amps on this TOOLIOM multi-process machine. This is 1 inch rebar and 3/4 inch plate. I'm going to be doing a fillet weld. Decently well, not as smooth as maybe a super high-end machine, but just as good as most any. Alright, I'm going to jump up to a 5/32 7018, and we'll try running the same thing, and let's just do 180 and see how it performs at those higher amperages. Now let's try running a 7024. See what this recommends. These are 1/8 inch, and they recommend up to 170 amps. Since this is real thick, we'll run it at its max. And then when I got the arc links just back along here, it seemed like it almost sputtered out. Just a little bit more than some other machines might have done. Yeah, often you'll find on cheaper machines that if your arc link just gets a little too long, they'll go out more easily. The arc will just extinguish than on some of the higher end machines often. But as long as you're actually keeping a proper arc length, usually you have no issue on a lot of them. So definitely not too shabby, not too shabby. All right, 185 was the 7018 5/32. I'll be doing some plug welds essentially, just plugging these off, and see how it goes. Right here I'm just running some 1/8 inch 7018 at 140 amps, welding a 1/2 inch plate to a 3/8 inch base plate. This is for a zip line that I'm putting off a 3rd story. An urban zip line, so that's pretty cool. Definitely going to be under quite a lot of stress, so we're doing a lot of multi-passes here, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So I ran the machine essentially non-stop for quite some time, filling this out with the 7018, and the machine just got slightly warm, did really well there. So I guess my main complaints with the stick welding is that the cycles per second may be a little bit slow, so you notice a couple times there'll be just maybe a little hesitation where it feels like the arc drops slightly. And that's a spot where if you're not doing everything just right, it's a little easier to stick the rod. But I've noticed that same problem on several Miller machines that I've used. One other thing to keep in mind is it does not run a 6010 high penetration electrode. I ended up actually getting this machine for a friend who's converting cars to electric, and so he has quite a bit of welding to do of all different types and wanted something versatile that could handle all kinds of things, and he's found it to work really well. But overall, I could really recommend this machine for the price. There really isn't that many other machines on the market. I mean, there are several others that I was interested in trying and I might do later on, but it definitely does a very decent job. So if you just need a good welding machine that does a lot of different things, it's going to be able to really get you into welding and learning things. Obviously Everlast is a lot better, but you're talking more of $1,200 for something similar to this. And of course ESAB makes some excellent machines, but you're talking more in the $2,000 range. So if you had all the money in the world, there's a lot of other machines that are better, but this one's surprisingly very good for the budget price that it's at. I would be happy working with it even as a daily thing.